Assalamualaikum and good morning once again. So in this session, we'll be discussing the Philippine accounting standards on inventories. Okay class, so this session discusses inventory, its characteristics, components and valuation, the initial and subsequent measurement inventory, as well as the periodic and perpetual inventory systems. Okay, so this will be our next discussion. Okay, so let's define inventory. So what are inventory? So inventory consists of the following. Number one, anything held for sale in ordinary course of business. So if merchandising ka, lahat ng binibenta mo sa sari-sari store mo or sa grocery store mo, that is your inventory. Second, materials in the process of production of such sales. So example, ito yung mga work-in process inventory. So example, gumagawa ka ng furniture. So yung mga lahat ng mga hindi mo pa natapos na units, hindi mo pa totally na paint or hindi mo pa totally na finishing. Okay, so yun yung mga work-in process. Okay, and we have the materials or supplies to be consumed in production process or rendering of services. So ito yung mga pwedeng office supplies inventory. Okay, so or yung mga store supplies inventory kasi inventory din yon. Okay, so like yung mga paper bags, okay, or boxes, or ito yung gagamitin sa production like yung mga raw materials natin. Okay, so if we are into producing let's say let's produce bond paper, okay, so yung mga materials mo siguro dyan, okay, are syempre yung wood, okay, or yung mga chemical to be joined, okay, to be mixed, okay, so yon yung mga ganon. Okay, so past 2, okay, is applicable to all inventories except the two kinds of inventories. Assets, no, that are classified under another standard, okay, like for the agricultural produce, okay, yung mga ganon. And then, assets that are not measured at the lower of cost or net realizable value. So for example, yung agricultural produce that are measured at net realizable value, or yung mga inventories of commodity trader brokers, no, that are measured at fair value less cost to sell. So may ibang standard at saka may ibang measurement sa kanila, so they are not included under past 2. So how do we measure inventories? So inventories are to be valued at cost or net realizable value, whichever is lower. Okay, so whichever is lower. So here are our important points, no? We determine the cost of inventories. Magkano ba yung cost ng inventories? Okay, then we determine the realizable value of inventory and then we compare, no? So whichever is lower. So what will be our cost of inventory? So the cost includes the cost of purchase, okay, the cost of conversion, and other costs incurred in bringing inventories to their present location and condition. So what will be the cost of the purchase of inventory? So cost includes the purchase price, so less the trade discounts, no? Next would be the import duties, okay? And then next would be the transportation cost or the freight. Next would be the handling cost, other directly attributable cost, okay, to bring the inventory. Okay, so yun yung mga cost of purchase. Okay, so including any yung hindi natin i-include yung mga tax rebates, okay, yung mga purchase discounts. Okay, so what do we include in our conversion cost? Okay, so our conversion cost would largely constitute two types of cost. Yung direct cost, no? So ito yung actually yung the labor, direct labor, okay? And we also have the overhead, okay? The fixed and the variable production overheads for converting into inventory. So some of our fixed production overhead are example, no? The rent of the factory, okay? The depreciation of the machinery, okay? So those are some of our fixed overhead, no? So they remain largely fixed irrespective of the output. Okay, so for our variable production overhead, no, so they vary, no, with output like our indirect materials. Okay, indirect materials like hindi naman talaga siya the main material, no, for our product like yung mga nails, mga paper clips or whatsoever. Okay, and they vary with the output. Okay, so in case of joint products, no, ito yung joint products, they are produced, no, and they are produced jointly, and their cost of conversion are not separately identifiable. So their cost of conversion will be allocated on a rational and consistent basis. So for example, no, wood factory. So we produce timber, no? And as a spillage, meron tayong yung dust, no? So yun yung i-jointly allocate between them. Okay, so what are excluded, no, or not included in the cost of inventory? So we have the abnormal amounts of wasted materials, labor, or other production costs. Okay, so we also have storage cost, no? So unless, no, very essential to the production process, as specified in the problem. We also have administrative overheads, especially pag hindi related to production. So example, yung share ni production department sa bonus ni president, no? So we will not include that. Next, we have the selling and distribution cost. Hindi yan kasali. Next, we have foreign exchange differences, no? So hindi yan siya kasali. And of course, we have interest and borrowing costs when inventories are purchased with deferred settlement terms. So hindi yan kasali sa cost of inventories. So there are cost flow methods or the cost formula for inventory. So we have specific identification method, and we have also other methods like FIFO and weighted average cost. And before, we have LIFO, but it is not permitted anymore. Okay, so what is specific identification method? So we will directly link the cost with a specific item of inventory. Talagang uniquely specified siya na inventory and uniquely identified. So, okay? So, hindi siya dapat interchangeable. Okay? So, or the goods or services produced and segregated for specific purposes. So, talagang mas specifically ay mas specify mo siya. Okay? So, that is specific identification method. Okay, so another, aside from specific identification of cost, is the FIFO, no? Or first in, first out. So, ibig sabihin, yung first na binili natin, first in inventory, yun yung first na ibebenta natin, first out. So, therefore, yung maiiwan sa inventory natin will be the cost of yung recently purchased inventory natin. Okay? So, actually, this is the generally used, no? Okay. So, we also have the weighted average cost. Okay, so weighted average cost, no? So, we will average, no, from the beginning inventory at saka yung mga recent purchases. So, i-average natin yun siya. Okay. Okay, so we also do inventory estimation, no? Especially if, example, yung inventory natin nasunog or binagyo or ninakaw. Okay? So, paano natin ma-determine yung amount ng inventory? For insurance purposes, example, pina-insured natin siya. Okay, so we have inventory estimation. Another situation na mangyayari ito is example, yung physical count of goods is nangyari and it is necessary, no, to prove the correctness of such count. So, talagang mag-estimate tayo. Okay? And also, ginagamit natin ito if there are needed na interim financial statements. Okay? At saka, hindi pa talaga nangyari yung physical count. So, it's either mag-take pa ng time. So, we estimate inventories. And we have two methods, gross profit method and the retail method. Okay, so we have again, no, so the gross profit method. Another way of estimating our inventory value. Okay, so we all know the formula for gross profit rate, gross profit rather, so that's sales less cost of sales. Okay, so we will get the gross profit if based on sales. Of course, that's gross profit is equal to the gross profit rate times the sales. Okay, so if the gross profit naman is based on cost, so our gross profit is equal to the gross profit rate times sales divided by the sales ratio. Okay, so again, yung sales na minimin natin dito is the net, no, of the return. So again, only the return, hindi kasali si sales discounts and allowances. Always remember that. Okay, so when we determine the gross profit rate, pag sinabing average gross profit yung gagamitin, so yung gross profit year 1, year 2, year 3, i-divide mo lang with the number of years. But if the problem states that the overall gross profit ratio, okay, so you will get the gross profit ng amount talaga ng all the years, i-divide mo ng sales na amount talaga, and then that will be our overall gross profit. Okay, so yon. Okay, so retail inventory method. So the retail method is simply another way of determining cost by starting, no, with the selling price, and we deduct a suitable estimate of our profit margin. Okay, so this method is actually used in retail industry, no, for measuring inventories of large numbers, no, with similar, as long as similar margins. Okay, so okay, so here as you can read, no, in your textbook, for retail method we have the terms initial markup, no, the original markup, additional markup, markup cancellation, net markup, markdown cancellation, net markdown. Okay, so ayan, and we also have the most important, the cost ratio. Okay, so yung ginagamit natin here in this method, retail inventory method, is not the gross profit ratio, but rather the cost ratio. So again, as you can see in your books, no, the basic formula natin is yung goods available for sale at retail less the net sales. So, ibig sabihin ng net sales, sales less sales returns. Returns lang ha, hindi kasali yung discounts. Okay, so we will arrive at the ending inventory at retail. Okay, so we multiply that with the cost ratio, so we will get the ending inventory cost. Okay, so as what we have discussed na while ago, sa initial measurement natin ng inventory, so we have yung mga cost, conversion cost, okay, so yun, no, the purchase cost. But on the subsequent measurement, we measure inventories at the lower of cost and the net realizable value. So yung cost, okay lang, naintindihan na natin kanina. Ano itong NRV? Okay, so NRV is the estimated selling price in the ordinary course of business less the estimated cost of completion and the estimated cost necessary to make the sale. So, in other words, no, NRV is done on the most reliable evidence at the time of valuation. So, how do we value, no? How do we estimate NRV? Okay, so, for raw materials and factory supplies, no, the replacement cost. So, materials and other supplies held for use in the production of inventories, okay, are not written down below cost if the finished products in which they will be incorporated are expected to be sold at or above cost. Second is yung work in process o yung mga partially completed goods natin. So, estimated selling price less the estimated cost of completion less estimated cost to sell. Sa finished goods naman, we have the estimated selling price less estimated cost to sell. Okay, so that is the NRV.